Welcome to the Go Guild. I'm hoping to bring some happy gopher news on this dreary grey day. So let's get started. As always, we're going to be doing some announcement and news. We've got some releases, notably 126 as well. So we've got a deep dive into that. Community roundup. We've got the Go developer survey coming maybe a few weeks ago. As I said, 126 demos and some top level features, and also some juicy tools as well. Announcement news, what's been going on in the Go space? Blind Bird tickets are available on the GopherCon UK. So if you fancy going to GopherCon UK, I think they're the cheapest that they're at. I think they're about 220 quid, which is very good. So perhaps start convincing your bosses or you're getting the budgets out for that. So that's really good. It is confirmed to be at the brewery again as well, which is great news. Releases, what's happened? So 126 released, I'm not sure exactly, perhaps a couple of weeks ago, but we'll get into that in a minute. And Fiber v3 is out. So Fiber v3, for those who don't know, is a HTTP library. It's got lots of features and what have you, but the main port of this kind of release is that it has loads of compatibility with the standard library. I think 125 brought out those pattern matching, and they're utilizing it now. And the change log on this one is really big, really interesting. There's a chap there who's done an incredible amount of work for Fiber, so please do go and check it out. What's been going on in the community? JetBrains are having a party to release 126. So Anton, I'm not going to pronounce his second name, he does all of the interactive tools for Go. He's going to be there, and Alex Rios. So if you fancy that, what's the date today? It's today. It's happening today, in a couple of hours. So go and say hello. Victoria Metrics keep on doing some really good articles on Go, and they keep on popping up in the roundup of newsletter, particularly about metrics in particular. But this is to do with graceful shutdown. So if you're running a HTTP handler, if you've got DB resources open, you've got file rights, it's always important to make sure you close down those resources properly, and then close the app. So this kind of article shows you how to stop accepting new requests. As I said, let requests finish, release critical resources, and also to catch signals using a channel. So SIG, SIG-term, all of that sort of stuff. If that does happen, we need to gracefully shut down. I think we do have quite a lot of shutdown-y sort of bits in our library Go kit, and definitely worth having a look. But there's a nice little diagram there as well. Go sync test, I think this was released in 125, but this chap, basically, I saw on Reddit, this guy just said, I love sync test. And I read it, and it was really interesting, not just what he was using it for, but there's kind of another side to it. So reminder what sync test is. So it's the ability to advance time in your tests, and tests run in a bubble with a fake clock. So if you call time.sleep in your code, this is all virtualized, so it runs instantly. So loops that normally depend on kind of like time.after, which you'll see in a second, there's no flakes or anything like that. And you can test loops and things like that. So it's really powerful. So here on the right, I've got a little run worker function. It accepts a channel and then pointer to an int. And basically every minute I just increment the count. And then when I test it, and I want to test this, I don't want in CI, I don't want this test to last 3 minutes, obviously. This is where this comes in. So I call Go run worker, I pass in a done chan, I pass in a reference to my integer. I do a time.sleep. Now that would basically fake 3 minutes, advances virtual time, and then the count should be 3 because we've waited 3 minutes. So you can just call it on the top there, just up here, sync_test.test. So if you've got any time.sleeps or select blocks or anything like that, or time.afters, something really good to look into and perhaps refactor. Proposal, generic methods for Go. Now, I got really excited about this because every time I use generic, I don't know how you guys feel, please feel free to let me know in the chat, but every time I use generics, I'm always like, oh, it doesn't do that, or it doesn't do that. And there's something not quite right. Maybe it's me, I don't know. But when I saw this, I really thought that this is going to really staple generics down, and it's going to make it a lot more flexible. So at the moment, you can't create generic methods on a concrete type. So you can have a generic struct, but you can't have like generic methods of that type. So at the moment, we've got a box struct, and it is just a type B for box, and you pass in a t.any, and this is going to fail now. But the proposal is aiming to pass it in so you can pass in any 42 or apples or anything like that. So I think that would make the type system really flexible, and I really hope they do put this in. I love the Go Reddit. A chap said, we rewrote our Python API gateway in Go, and now it's faster, but nobody cares because it's already worked fine. And the moral of that story is, I guess, don't fix what's not broken. So yeah, fair play. Do you use init in production? Again, interesting question with some interesting responses. The top voted one here was saying, don't load a config, and only kind of, well, I'll read what the main one is. The main rule is that the init does no IO, no real work. It can allocate memory for storage, and kind of auto registering a component, but that's it. I don't see init being used very much, which is probably a good thing because it's a lot of global state. There's a lot that could go wrong with it, but there's some good examples there nonetheless. So the Go developer survey is done every year by the Go team to gauge how they feel Go is going, excuse the pun, and what they could do better, and things like that. So it's some really interesting results, and I do quite like looking through it. I picked out some highlights here, but please feel free to go and have a look. I'll quote from the guys that run this. But I've told on behalf of the Go team. Broadly speaking, Go developers ask for help with identifying and applying best practices, making the most of the standard library. Now, that's quite an interesting take because obviously Go is so, I would say, so, blank canvas. Maybe developers struggle where to start, what the best practices are. Another point, most Go developers are now using AI development tools, no surprises there. But their satisfaction with these tools is middling due to, in part, quality concerns. A high surprising portion of respondents said they frequently need to review documentation for Go subcommands, including go build, go run, and go mod, suggesting meaningful room for improvement with the Go commands help system. So the first one, overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you using Go during the past year? And I don't think this has changed for a few years, and it's really good to see Go sort of everyone just so happy using it. And yeah, it says these folks are telling us that there's tremendous value in Go, and that doesn't mean that it supports all programming domains equally well, but developers value the domains nicely by a standard library and the built-in tooling that it has. And some quotes that are plucked here. Go is my favorite language. Other languages feel far too complex and unhelpful. The fact that Go is small, simple, and fewer bells and whistles. And the entire reason that I use Go is great tooling and a standard library. I'm very thankful for the team focusing on great HTTP, crypto, and math. So interesting stuff. What kind of stuff do you build with Go? CLI tools seems to be the most popular thing still. I don't know what that is. I don't know if people have jumped ship to languages like Rust for that, for speed. I guess there's trade-offs with Rust and things like that. alongside libraries, frameworks, and RPC services. And I'm also really happy to see that websites or web services returning HTML is creeping up, so 46%. I'd love to see Go do more web-based things, and also perhaps more ML AI stuff. I know Python's been flagging, holding the flag for that, so that would be great. Interesting to see some of the younger generation also taking up Go. So you can see 9% are 18 to 24-year-olds. So we're bringing up the younger gophers through the ranks, which is really good to see. How many years of professional coding experience do you have? And yeah, also good to see some associate developers are putting their trust in Go. 35% have more than 15 years of experience. And perhaps this tells us seniors value simplicity. I don't know, quite an interesting metric to think about why that might be. But and what are your 3 most frustrating things about working with Go? Not everything's perfect. Go isn't perfect, but people find it difficult to follow best practices, as I said, because it gives you such a kind of a wide range to do. And finding trustworthy Go modules, I found quite surprising. I thought I'd be keen to speak to the people that find it quite hard to find good, trustworthy Go modules. Maybe security, not sure. I'll take something from the survey here. Respondents told us that except for Go test, between 15 and 25% of them felt they often needed to review documentation with these tools. So very interesting. That leads us nicely into Go 126 and a heavy set of features, and really nice to Go to do their standard release cycle every year. Makes these meetups as well really exciting that can help to sort of give you a little demo. I'm not sure who pointed it out in the Go Guild channel, but thank you for posting this. This guy Anton is a really great chap for putting these interactive tools out. I can't compete with that, but I have plucked a few bits and pieces out and redone some examples to show you some highlights of what I think is really notable in 126. The built-in new function. I don't know about you, but in my code bases in Go, I have littered with to-pointer, from-pointer, all of that stuff. Now is no more. We don't need to do that. We can call new, and it will create a pointer for you. So it's basically a function expression in 126. And before new could only make an empty variable, so a 0 value. But now you can make a pointer to values. So here we've got pointer to value, P is new, and that prints 42 if we dereference it. And then I've got another example here, age int, and we can pass in new age, which we can pass in the variable, and that will be a pointer. So you don't have to do that kind of double line var and then initialize it. It's just new now, which is good. Generic errors as type. There's a new errors as type function, which is generic version of errors.as. So errors.as is check that an error is a particular type and then assigns it to. So you can see on the right, that's like Go plus 113 or what it was. Errors.as there, we've got an app error. We check if it is that thing, but now we can do it all in one line. It's not just about saving a bit of white space. It avoids reflection, which is great. And also, if you don't use it correctly, sometimes this errors.as can cause runtime panics. So this is a lot safer and less boilerplatey. I think I saw an example with a switch statement, and it was very much smaller as a result. So really good. And you can see here it's quicker. 2 allocs gone down as well, so not bad at all. Format.errorf. Format.errorf. Well, errors.new has been sort of a unspoken linting rule I think, across many Go developers if you don't use formatting. But now, thanks to a change, I forgot the name of the contributor, if you pass in format.errorf and just foo, it will be exactly the same to errors.new. So you don't need to go and worry about the difference between format.errorf or errors.new now. So from Russ Cox, using format.errorf foo is completely fine, especially in a program where all of the errors are constructed with format.errorf. Having to mentally switch between two functions based on the argument is unnecessary noise. So when to use errors.new then, I guess, is the question. Obviously, formatting still takes time. There's still extra allocations if we're doing formatting itself, but just for plain strings here, you can see there's a non-escaping error. That goes from 2 allocations to 0. And then the escaping on the heap, that goes from 2 allocations to 1. So it's the same. Interesting. And these optimizations, these diffs on GitHub are really interesting. Yeah, very, very good. Speaking of optimization as well, I think this is the same guy that did the one before, the error.f. IO read all now is very quick, or a lot quicker. So IO read all, the diff is on the right here. I'll try and summarize it as best I can. We basically build a slice of increasing size, which reduces memory waste. And this implementation literally is twice as fast and uses about half the memory. So for 65 KB inputs, with greater efficiency for larger inputs. And benchmarks 50% faster, 50% lower memory allocation, and 50% smaller final slice capacity excess ratio. I think it would be really good if we do roll out 126 components and services to check our Grafana to see what happens. I think that would be a really interesting scenario to see if there's any IO read-alls in payloads that we're accepting from partners or anything like that, to see if this goes down. Because I mean, 50% is quite quick, right? And there's good memory changes there. Runtime.secret. What's a secret? Well, something you don't want to be shared. It basically allows you to run a function in a secret mode. So after the function finishes, it will completely zero out the register, and heap allocations made by the function are erased. So I've got an example here. Something that we all might do is we've got a token that will hold this kind of safe result that we want to return, and we enter a secret function which takes a callback, and everything inside here will be cleaned up straight after by the GC in the next iteration. We write a password, a salt, we create the token, we copy it over, and then we return it. And after this is finalized, then that temporary hash is kind of erased. So quite interesting for crypto, any sensitive crypto stuff you're doing, recommend runtime.secret. Log.multi-handler. You can now send logs to multiple destinations using standard library. I think there were some ways using just kind of normally, I think there were different ways of doing this outside of standard library, but you can now do it using this log package. So multi-handler now sends logs you can send logs to files, standard out as usual, simultaneously. So you basically have a multi-handler and support with attribute with groups. Real world example for this, perhaps you have HTTP requests. You want to send info requests to a log file while simultaneously sending errors to like tracing tools, something like that. So here on the right, I create a new text handler, which is standard out. I create a new JSON handler, which writes to a log. And then I can pass in this new function, new multi-handler. And then when I call new and log something, that's going to write to standard out and to the JSON file. I think that's a really handy function, because I think probably this is a lot of people doing this a lot for dev production environments, things like that. Artifact directory returns a directory where a test can store output files. So very interesting. If you've got lots of fixtures, you can start using this, and then calling it in the same kind of subtests as well, where they're separate from parents. So you might need to bear that in mind when using it. But great feature for testing. And Go Fix, I highly recommend, if you've got 5, just to go to any repo, go install 126 and run go fix ... There's been some massive changes in 126 for Go Fix. Wow, that is a tongue twister. So it's kind of on the same framework as Go Vet, but by default, Go Fix runs like 20 analyzers that I'll show you in a sec, and it's basically a way of just modernizing Go code. So if you've got a bit of Go code that was deemed like legacy, I made 10 years ago, it will automatically just change it to whatever the new version of that is. So some examples here: replace interface with any. You can replace explicit loops over maps to the mapped package. And yeah, I think there's a couple more, but yeah, do this on your repos and see. It's very interesting. Let's see what it changes. Tools. A few tools that have been creeping up, and getting some more stars on GitHub that I thought I'd share. Redka, really interesting library that implements Redis, but it's SQL based. So it remains compatible with Redis API, supports acids, but it uses SQLite and Postgres as a backend. This, I think, yeah, this is. I did come across this. I think, when would you use this? Well, Redis servers these days are very expensive, and I guess if you're already using Postgres, you've got a big Postgres instance on RDS, you can use that. But testing as well, this is great for integration testing, right? You can just have an SQL file that uses Redis as opposed to actually spinning up or mocking a Redis instance. You can just use this. You can use Redis. You can use an SQLite file, yeah, very interesting indeed. Ego, facial detection written in pure Go. And also, most importantly, no C bindings, so no additional modules. And I think it's really cool seeing this being ported to Go, actually, because there's a lot of stuff, as I said before, being ran in Python, all of this sort of stuff that you can do. But the more stuff I see like this in Go, I think it's great. So you can see some of the stuff that it picks up there with great detail. Rectangular face markers, circle face markers. But yeah. Dozzle is a lightweight web-based application for monitoring Docker logs in real time. If you've got you're working on a side project and you want some logs or an easy way to view logs that's not Datadog, you can give this a go. This has got a lot of traction, actually, 11K stars and rising. So do go and check that one out. GoScan.dev is a new site that measures the popularity of Go repos, Go modules, and also trending modules. And it does it by scanning go.mod files. Interesting there that well, no surprises that Testify there is quite up there, and Cobra and Prometheus. But yeah, very very interesting stuff. WebSocket, Logos, yeah, that's still there. Yeah. JSON Schema Go. Google has officially released this. I know there was some chat on the Go Guild about some JSON. I know we work quite heavily with JSON schemas, and we want to, that's a very easy, portable way of saying to clients how they should implement calls to us. This one basically allows you to create JSON schemas from Go structs and serialize to and from JSON. The last time I tried to use this, I did find the docs are a little bit flaky. Well, when I say flaky, I mean a bit non-existent. I don't know. The examples could have been a bit better, but they've released this now, and I'm not sure of the any of or one of kind of thing, because when you're describing Go to any sort of structure, because the generics is quite what constrain what you can do in generics, is quite hard to express one of or any of. So a bit interesting to see Google getting into this stuff as well, and I think obviously it's going to be maintained quite well. Go dump, don't have time to a debug, or can't be bothered to do a debug, or just want something prettier than print line. Go dump is your friend. No dependencies, all the pretty bells and whistles, and inspired by Laravel's DD, dump and die, which absolutely love and sends me back a few years ago. But yeah, really nice dump there. Drift. Drift is a cross-platform mobile UI framework for Go. So you write your app once in Go, then build native Android and iOS. Yeah, very interesting, this sort of stuff being ported to Go. I really hope we see more stuff of that, because the JS side of things has got so much love with back end, front end, native. Really cool to see that. And then here's a little example of what you can do with it. You can kind of create some buttons and themes and text and state as well. So yeah, interesting. Speaking of front ends, Go for JS allows you to write Go for the web as well. Might work interchangeably, but basically you can compile Go to run natively in browsers. So you can interact with the DOM, JS libraries, browser APIs. Maybe you want to share some like logic between front and back end. So here on the right, I can get the document. I can create an element of a button. I can append that child to the DOM, and I can call it, and I can add an event listener. I think that was just really nice seeing that in Go, to be honest. I do feel like a lot of JS devs might hate this, but that gives me a lot of pleasure. So that's cool. Any other business? We're looking for speakers. Until then, if you fancy having a little internal share, 20 minutes of the Go Guild, please do let us know. It's literally all skill levels. It doesn't need to be a really high or really in detailed technical discussion. It can be what I learned last week. It doesn't have to be much. It can go onto YouTube. It doesn't have to go on YouTube. And I know we do have a lot of external speakers come in, but don't feel like you can't come forward and showcase what you've learned and what you love and what you like and what you don't like about Go. And as always, we're always available in the Go Guild channel. Does anyone have any questions? No? Well, thank you very much, all. Lovely to see you all, and we'll see you all next month. Have a good one.